Well, good morning, everybody. Unless you're on the East Coast, or even the CST, I think it's noon or 1 Eastern. So happy to have you here. And my name's Woody Adams. I have a quick slide. I'll go over just introducing myself, the agenda, and then we'll dive right into product. If you've been to the accountant best practices, this will be the next step. Going through settings. Today we're going to focus on best practices and set up service-based businesses. Right, so some advanced features, and I'm going to be focusing on QuickBooks Online Plus for several key reasons. One, just a two-sided item, right? So you'll learn stuff like that. The goal of these, no CPE, right? Sorry about that, but still the goal is that when you're consulting with a client, you'll know exactly what the product can do. Do I need a third party? Right, I'll mention those if that comes up. Or, if they don't need to be mobile and, their sales, estimate the actual reporting in Premier Desktop, well, then they can stay there, right? So I think it's important that you know, just easier for you when you're talking to your clients. So we're going to focus on service-based businesses today, and then we have another series of this Beyond the Basics, which is going to be product-based business as well, and that next one is Tuesday, and I think we have them all the way, bi-weekly through the end of June anyway, going forward. Administratively, you can ask me questions in the questions box, right? And I usually respond throughout the presentation. I don't wait to the end. You can also download the deck, right? The PowerPoint deck that I'm using, because it has links to other resources as well as all the other available free training. And I think if you want CPE, that would be Accountant University. There's links to that as well. Those are the last two slides of the deck, right? So feel free to download it in the handout section. So two sections, questions and then handouts. And then the rest should be good. I'm recording this, sharing my screen. If you have any issues, feel free to let me know that way. Everybody is muted, by design. Here am I. Picture's pretty old. Abby's like 4 now. But anyway, Mount Lemmon, Tucson. That's where I live now. Spent a lot of years at Intuit Plano in Texas and been with Intuit since 2004, mostly on the QuickBooks side of the business. Grew up on desktop and using QBO since 2009, right? Enough about me. And then, so here's kind of the two-part series. Don't worry, the product-based business we're not going to go into. However, today, that'll be next week. But today we're going to look at service-based businesses. So I want to go through the settings on pass-through time and expense material to an invoice, right? And a few other ones. And how do you get the job costing, like profitability reporting. Two-sided items, very important. Not in Simple Starter Essentials, certainly not in Self-Employed. You have to have plus for that if you need double-sided items, as you might call them in desktop. Then we're going to look at a budget to actual workaround, because really the only miss left outside of some like reporting stuff for accountants between QBO Plus and Pro is going to be estimate to actual reporting. We got price rules in beta. I'll go over that next week. And then we got progress invoicing also in beta that's being rolled out, right? So those are like the last two gaps. I would love estimate to actual reporting. I like that. Desktop Pro and Premier Enterprise do that all day long. So for me, that's like the last gap feature outside of reporting stuff for accountants, for sure. And I continue to send that up to product development. We will look at the related reporting, pretty easy. I am going to go sub-customer versus project. I want to go into the bank feed a little bit and show where you would job cost there, because you can do that as well, but not at the rule. So let's align there too. We changed the employees tab to workers, so you will have contractors that are going to be doing stuff, and you want to be able to tag their name as well. So how do you do the contractor setup now where they can actually enter their own info? And then I want to go through QuickBooks Payments and recurring sales receipts. Service-based businesses might want to set up like a free ACH payment from their customers and have like auto debit. So I wanted to touch on some slides there. If we have time, we'll look at sales form customization and class location tracking. I don't know if we'll have time, but anyway, that's what we're going to cover today. Next week, we'll cover the product-based business stuff. Fair enough? All right, that's it. Told you, 2 slides. And hopefully you're seeing my screen. Okay. And I'm going to go into a client file, which I already have up. It's called Cloud Collaboration LLC, right? And I'm in through QBOA. So if you're a client of a firm in here today, you would just be looking at QuickBooks Online. But for the most part, the audience are firms of managed accounts. So either way, welcome. Thanks for spending the next, 56 minutes with me anyway. So let's start with settings. And I have the list here that I'm going to be going so I don't forget, because my short-term memory is not awesome. So gear icon, right? Three access areas of QBO, the left-hand panel. the search field, the plus sign, the gear icon, right? This is kind of be edit preferences, right? And then we'll look at two-sided items and we'll go from there. I already have some stuff canned and set up, right? So we'll go over that too. And when to use sub-customer versus a project, because project tracking is fairly new. But all the settings that will pertain to a service-based business, particularly for pass-through time and expense, or light job costing as I call it, because you can't really do the estimate to actual workaround. There's no real change orders, although anybody could create an item called change order and put it on an estimate, or just create another estimate. I mean, to me, that's not a deal breaker. But the estimate to actual reporting and certainly payroll labor burden. If your client needs that, right, and they still want to be mobile, right, so they're not going to be on Premier, Enterprise, or even Pro does that well. I'm talking about tracking labor costs, you know, at the job level, right, for payroll. Still can't do that in any of the online payrolls, right? So there are two great third parties. I'll even write it down if you want, but one is Knowify, 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 and the other, that's for residential contractors, and then you have CoreCon, which is for government contractors. And commercial contractors, CoreCon. Both excellent. They connect to QBO, and they handle all that kind of stuff. Right? But hopefully we'll have that. I know it's on the roadmap one day as well. Okay, I'm going to go to sales first. There is something here, progress invoicing. If your client has it yet, it's slowly rolling out. But this is when you're going to invoice progressively against an estimate till it's closed. Clearly, your service-based clients are going to want that. Right? One estimate, many invoices. Okay? So it's turned on in mine. I actually signed up for the beta. That's why it's in there, but we're rolling it out slowly over the next couple months. So don't be surprised if your client does not have it, but it'll be a sales setting. And this is where they'll go turn it on. They'll just check it off. Actually, I think we're going to, just seeing you and I think we're just going to have it be like auto on, you know, like it is in desktop. Right? So I am going to show you that. All right? I have an estimate teed up for that I already created for this project, really. So there is that setting I wanted to point out. Don't worry about the products and services, nothing really there. Price rules and beta, that's cool, but we're not going to go over that today. We'll go over that in the product-based business session. Then I go to expenses, because here in Plus is these extra settings that you would want to pass through time expense, right? So show items table on expense and purchase forms, right? Now what does that really mean? And I'm going to go there, we might as well go there now. Yes, I did right-click and duplicated the tab I'm on to have two windows. Right? So if you're not sure, you haven't been through the regular account best practice or seen Valerie's best practice browser tips and tricks. But this setting is pretty key because it's like in desktop, and I always assume there are people in the audience that are used to desktop as I am. I grew up on it too, right? And you know on a check or a bill or credit card expense, you have an expenses tab and you have an items tab. Right? So how do we mimic that? Because that's where you'd go if you're purchasing items to pass through or whatever. Tag a customer job, right? So on we'll just play with a credit card expense here. And I know there's no separate credit card charge, but this really does create one for you. There you go. So you'll have this item. Sorry about that. I clicked the reload page. It'll come eventually here. There is item details and account details on the form itself, right? Account details, item details, right? So if you are, because, you know, the forms are item-based, right, in the estimate. So if you're using non-inventory parts or service items, you're going to put them on the estimate, you know, and you might hire a 1099-C or sub-C or just one of your employees. You can put in the product service, but it's really about this customer or project field and the ability to make it billable, right? So that's what these settings do. Show items table on expense and purchase forms because you're using items on the estimate and on the invoice, right? So we want to job cost them, not just at the account level, but at the item level. That's what this setting is doing. Tracking expenses and items by customer, that gives you the customer field for project or customer, and then making it billable. Now, if you're just going, like my scenario is, my client, I'm going to show you the estimate soon, and I'm just going to invoice against it. I'm not really passing anything through to them because they already accepted the estimate contract amount, right? So I'm just going to invoice against it a couple times. But still, if you want to make things billable, meaning you want QBO to create an invoice against them, you check that box as well. So those are important. The other one I wanted to mention too, and then we'll move on, the Advanced tab with time tracking. Now, both Essentials and Plus can do this. Yes, Essentials, QBO Essentials can do time tracking, right? And they have the ability to pass the time through. Now, time is, just like in desktop, it's a non-posting. You can't really see the cost of it until you put it on a posted transaction. And that's where the rub is. with QBO versus desktop is that you don't have, the ability to job cost the payroll unless you do like a $0 journal entry, but who wants to do that? I don't. So I'm really looking forward to that one. That'll be awesome one day. So, but add service field to timesheets, right? So you put the item on there and I can ping a customer or project, make it billable to pass it through, right? That's important. The other thing is project tracking. Your client probably has that. Turn that on if they want to do projects. Now let's go and talk about sub-customer versus project. We'll look at the estimate, and we'll go through some transaction entry, some reporting, my budget to actual stuff, bank feed, and we'll go on from there. Now, one other thing to mention, though, automation. I usually leave all this stuff off until I know my client a little more and what kind of automation do I want them to have. Because the pre-fill forms of previously entered content, just as a side note, that's not just for vendors. So it's not the same one that we're used to in desktop where you put the vendor name on a check and all the info comes over. It's also going to impact customers and employees, so I don't turn that on. And then the automatically apply credits, or on the other side of the fence, bill payments, or vendor credits to a bill, that's going to do it to the next invoice or bill in line. So I also leave that one off, because I might want to choose what credit memo goes to what invoice, etc. Then finally, there's this one, automatically invoice unbilled activity. Now, this could be for some of your clients, probably not a lot, because this is a global setting. There are recurring transactions. I forgot to put on the list. We should probably look at that. Oh, no, I do. I have recurring sales receipt. Anyway, there are, you can do a recurring invoice that can pick up any unbilled activity for a customer, on a recurring invoice, as well as whatever's on the invoice template too. But this is more of a global setting that any unbilled activity, I have a cost, a good sold, an expense, anything on a check bill, delayed charge, credit card expense, I can have QBO based on the interval, the end of the month, the end of the week, create invoices for all of that. Now that might be good for, I don't know, an architect or an engineer, I don't even know. But if they want to control what cost goes onto the invoice, don't check this box, right? Or this helps you in troubleshooting. If you're seeing a lot of invoices just automatically being created and you're like, this is out of hand, then you go in here, you click the advanced setting, and you uncheck the box because they turned it on because it looks cool, right? Okay, cool. We're not really going to go into multi-currency here, but basically those are the things. Yes, class and location tracking, class tracking. We'll try to go over that at the end, but that's where you turn it on as well. But those are the main things, right, for this job costing scenario that we're talking about today, okay? All right, so you turn those on, and most of those settings are not in essentials, okay? Progress invoicing will be in essentials. That's good. Price rules is just in plus. Class tracking, location tracking is only in plus. 1099 contractor, that's in all of them now. Simple Start Essential Plus. And yes, we added the general ledger and the trial balance report to Simple Start even, right? I'm just trying to think of things that you don't have time to keep up on, so I'm just letting you know what's available now. But I am solely in plus because of this next thing that I really want to show you. Gear icon, products and services, or I could go to sales in the left-hand panel, products and services, right? Two-sided items. We're going to want that, and you're going to see in my estimate that I have as to why this would be. Might as well go there now, and then we'll come back to two-sided items. Let me see if I have it. Yep. When you left-click in the search field, it always shows the last 10 transactions. It's not there. That's okay. I'm going to go to projects, and I'm going to bring up the estimate, which is a contract for this gig I'm doing. So we're getting into the project tracking, if you will, but a few other ducks in the row to knock out. We're going to look at two-sided items and sub-customer versus project, then we'll go into some transaction entry. I like the projects. When you turn that on, it gives you a project center. It's not like, though, it creates anything new I couldn't get just by using the sales window, the customer record. This project profitability report, that's really just a P&L filtered for the project. I could do that. There's a P&L by customer already canned you can run, right? There's unbilled time and expense and non-billable time reporting already in QBO Plus. It's just that we give you a project center, and we consolidate, what do you want to add to the project? Everything from the, revenue side versus the cost side, right? Time, et cetera. Remember, time and purchase orders and estimates are what? They're non-posting, just like in desktop. Okay, good. And there is a relationship of parent::child. like customer:job in Pro, right? So it's going to do this too. You'll see it on the estimate as well as the report. So I'm going to click on transactions, but net projects gives you a project center, okay? Now here's the estimate that I have. I'm just going to go ahead and click on that. It's for $11.50. This was what was allowed. The one thing for me that's missing versus in Desktop Pro is there's no markup column. So in Pro, you know, on the estimate, you see the cost of the business and what you're expected for revenue just on the form itself, right, once you figure that out. In QBO Plus, I'm going to be using a budget versus, I'm going to create a budget for this project, right? At the account balance level, I'm going to do a budget versus actual. That's kind of the workaround to get estimate to actual. I mean, you don't need a third party unless there's just a lot of heavy lifting, because you'll see you'd have to create a budget for every single project you have. If you have multiple projects during the week, I would, if it were me and I'm a residential contractor, I'm calling Notify, and I'm going to connect it to my QBO Plus. That way I'm still mobile, but I give it way faster visibility for estimate to actual reporting, tracking labor costs, change orders, what my sub-Cs are doing, my workers. It's just way easier, okay? But notice, estimate, item-based. I have these items, so let's go back here. Products and services. I have some set up under categories. I have bookkeeping services, accounting, consulting, bookkeeping, telephone support. That's what we're doing. That's the gig that we're doing with this particular client. Two-sided items, only in Plus. Probably my sleeper favorite for coming to Plus, right? Outside of like class tracking. So not only can I show the sales price and the revenue account as well as sales information, but also it turns on this purchasing information. It's just like that checkbox in an item in Desktop that's like only for, what is it, used for sub-assemblies or by subcontractors or whatever, you know, and that turns on the purchase side of the item. So I have a double-sided item now. And yes, you're seeing a bunch of price rules. Don't worry about that, but still. I have sales, I have revenue. In other words, I can use this item on a check, a bill, a credit card expense, as well as an invoice or a sales receipt or an estimate, right? And I think for service-based businesses, if they're not on Plus, then this is a big thing they're missing, because then you just have too many items, you have duplicate items, you don't need that. And really under wholesale billing, this is $25 a month versus $17.50. So anyway, for service-based business, I think that this is a win here for sure, right? Yes, we did add preferred vendor recently, pretty cool items. But anyways, two-sided items, and that's how you set it up. When you come in here, right, you're clicking new. Unless you converted from Desktop, most of those items will come over, particularly two-sided items. You don't have to reset them up or anything, right? They're supported during the conversion. But I have 4 subtypes, right? And for most service-based businesses, you're using either a non-inventory part or a service part, and you're just putting in the name, SKU if there was one, category, and then you can turn on the purchase side, right? All right, so that's two-sided items. Enough about that. So when I come to my estimate, this is why down here I have, you know, and that's just the category you're seeing, bookkeeping services. This isn't a sub-item. Categories kind of took over, quote-unquote, sub-items within QBO a while back. But I have accounting, consulting, bookkeeping, telephone support. Description, I don't care. You can have one. Your clients probably have one. But I have a quantity of hours, right? So 3, 5, 1 for the work we're doing. This is my rate. This is the revenue rate, and this is the amount. Once I created this, right, and we're going to go ahead and right-click, duplicate the window, because I want to show you a report. Well, first, and again, if you're doing a lot of these estimate to actual reporting, you want this is where the budget to actual workaround's great. My friend Stacy Kildall came up with this method, and it's awesome. We have a video on it. I'll show you that resource site. I think there's a link to it on the deck. But if you want to do it quickly, this is where the third-party apps really come into play, right? Again, Notify or CoreCon, Builder Trend, they're going to be way faster in getting this set up than you creating a budget for every single project or job you have, right? But I went ahead and created a budget just under budgeting, which is also a tool, so under the gear icon, for right here, Beyond the Basics 05-02-18, right? So we'll go ahead and edit it. Kept it really simple to make it as easy on myself as possible. Sorry about that. But basically, I just took the estimate amount. I looked at the estimate. I know that I'm expecting $1,150 in revenue, right? And then the cost to the business is going to be $300, right? But I had to have the estimate open. I had to have the product and service window open, and I added the columns income and expense account So I knew which accounts that they would be going to, specifically these here, and then the sales price to me and the cost to me, and then I had to multiply 3 times 50 in my head and stuff like that. I mean, that stuff is the legwork you have to do the estimate to actual workaround. Some of your clients, that's going to be fine. Maybe they don't have enough projects to warrant a third-party app. But you'll know a client when they look, we just have 10 jobs a week, and there's no way I'm creating 10 budgets just to do this workaround. So I want to make sure that's clear and be fair to you. There are great apps out there for construction, service-based industries, and I've already mentioned the 3. I'll put it in the chat one more time, and you can find them all on apps.com or Google them. But there's Norify, Corecon, Builder-Trend. There's a few others too. These aren't the only ones. But if you go to apps.com, also putting it in the chat, you can search in the search field for that, and you'll find them. And that way you can keep your client mobile, right? Again, if they don't need to be mobile, then keep them on Premier. Contractor Editions, Great Edition, or Enterprise Contractor if they need to. Even Pro handles this really well. Okay, so I've created the budget. The reason why I did that, because it's going to create a budget overview report, right? So we're going to quickly go to reports. You might have the older report center. I have the newer one. Either way, it doesn't matter. I'm going to go to budget overview, right? I like the new center, which you can turn on in labs. Most of your clients probably already have it, particularly if they have a new QBO. But the thing I like about it is that you can favorite the reports, and then they're just right there at the top. I probably have 15 to 20 favorite reports, so I don't have to dig around for them. Though you can always search for them in the search field, right? Quick way to get to any report, start typing the name. All right. So budget overview, and here's a project. We'll go over project versus sub-customer in a second. We're getting there, and then we'll dive into the estimate and do some transaction entry and a little more reporting on the budget versus actual piece of this. So I created the budget because I want a budget overview. This is my estimate, estimated job, if you will, what I'm anticipating for cost of goods sold, and for the revenue and my net operating income, I should expect that, right? This is budget. This is based on the estimated amounts from the estimate. So like desktop, that's already true. You create an estimate, and I did a budget too for the workaround, so now I have some good reporting and visibility. Okay, and that's what you would do that after you do all those settings and set up your two-sided items. This would be the next step. Okay, now you don't have to do the budget at all. You can just do an estimate, work off of that, and that's fine as well. I'm just showing you kind of a workaround because you can also get versus actual, which I'll show later on. Now, let's talk about sub-customers versus project tracking. Project tracking's newish, if you will, and I showed you where to turn it on. But when would you use a sub-customer over a project? Because really it's the same thing. It's going to be parent, and then you have subs, right? Very similar to what you'd see in desktop, right? The main entity and subs, or the job, right? And if I go down to the Beyond Basics, right here, if I drill into that, I did a project, so it's going to show here. So when would I use a project versus a sub-customer? It's when you need more detail or a separate address, separate ship to address, or even, yeah, ship to. So if I go back to, well, let me just go into Project 03 for right now, right, because this is a sub-customer. You edit it, right? So I still like sub-customer when you need a totally separate ship address, right? And you can even have a separate bill to address, okay? And then you're going to put in the display name, and you're going to check this box over here on the right, is sub-customer, right? Choose the main customer, and then typically, I would say in 98% of the cases, it's going to be bill with parent. In other words, the main entity is going to be who I'm going to be receiving the payment from, so I want to make sure I see all invoices that payment could be applied to across the different sub-customers' projects, quote-unquote jobs, right? So I like sub-customer as a way to do this customer colon sub-customer. You know, particularly use sub-customer when you need the separate address and more detail and information. Now, project tracking, if I go back to Beyond the Basics and drill into this project, again, you'll see project over on the left between expenses and workers, right? Project tracking is you don't need as much detail, and we were already in here first, and again, it's just my project center, okay? So that's really the only difference. Other than that, they're going to behave the same. They're going to look the same on reports as well. It's going to be parent colon child relationship, okay? And if you look on the estimate up in the field, it has the customer beyond the basics, colon, and then my project BTB 050218, which is just today, right? Okay, we'll get to creating an invoice a little later. So sub-customer project, two-sided items, budget to actual. We're going to get to that soon. But now let's go back to the project center. Interestingly enough, I do have where I can add transactions, right? So I can come in here and we'll say we know the estimate amount, right? So we spent 3 hours on accounting consulting, 5 on bookkeeping, and an hour on telephone support. Just translate whatever items you would put there, right? Not typically for a contractor, but anyway. And let's say we hired someone to, do a lot of this, right? So I am going to go from the project, just do an expense. I'm going to enter some cost. And I think my main contractor for this is Bake Accounting. Don't worry about the drawer there. Now you can use account details or item details really, but I'm going to use this, right? Because that's where it's different than desktop. Desktop has this no item issue that can happen if you don't use items on the cost forms. And you try to pass it through or just tag it to a customer, you'll have a no item on a job cost reports. QBO the budget to actual doesn't matter because it's an account balance report, but still I'm going to use items here because those are on the estimates, but it's not as critical as say within QuickBooks Desktop. There's essentially net, there's you won't get the no item issue if you've ever run into that within QBO, but still I would take desktop labor burden tracking for sure. So I have item details. You'll notice the project already showed up for me. So it's nice doing the transactions from the project center. You don't have to remember to tag the customer project. Now, it's going to want to make it billable, right? I'll just go ahead and leave it that way just in case I want to show that later. But if your client's customer, has already accepted the estimate, right? You're not going to pass anything else through. So you would uncheck the box, right? But I'm going to leave it here. So let's say they did this, and they also did, the bookkeeping there. Let's see, they did 2 hours of this so far, and then they did, 4 hours of that, and they haven't done any of the telephone support. But this is a cost to me. This is a posting transaction, right? So I can click Save and Close, and that's, to pay off Bake Accounting. I can also do a check just to show you guys, or a bill. I guess we could do a bill because it's here, or a time entry, just to show you all that once I choose the particular, where are you? Here you go. I'm gonna do item details. We'll say we use a bill for some other work they did. We'll call that the telephone support, right? And they did the 1 hour or whatever. Again, the project is going to be, auto-filled into the field, right? As that. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and click Save and Close. So now I'm entering cost against the job itself. We're tracking the transactions in the project center. The billable time would show up here as well, and so would invoice too, right? So you keep working that. Let's go ahead and look at a report, the budget to actual now, and then we'll do the revenue receiving against the estimate. I'll show you progress invoicing, and then we'll look at the budget to actual final. I want to dive into the bank feed and show where you can do some job costing there because that will help with the service-based businesses too. But yet you can't tag it on the rule yet, so it's important to know. We'll go through the contractor setup and workers and go through some payments and recurring settings, and like I said, quick sales form customization, class location tracking, if we have time. Probably should, though. Again, if you have questions, ask it in the questions box. Okay, a more alignment on setting this up, or best practices around there. I'm going to go back to this report, back to the list, and I did save one yesterday, budget to actual, to show you where I can filter, but I'm probably just going to left-click in the search field, and I believe it's right here. Yeah, there you go. It's already customized. Now, I saved my customized reports, so it's going to be in custom reports, right? So, like, here is the report that I did yesterday before I went home, just to make sure I was prepped for this morning, right? But I like the search field. It's great also when your client calls you and says, hey, I just did a check and it's all wrong. Can you help me? And you're like, which check? They're like, I don't know. If you left click in the search field, it'll be, one of the 10 probably. right? Quick way to find it, but I'm just going to go to the report. So here's my budget to ask, my budget to actual, right? This is my quote-unquote estimate to actual reporting, right? I have the actual, the budgeted, and let's see here. Yeah. So unfortunately, there's no way to hide these columns, like the parent's name, right? So it's really about this one. This is the project or sub-customer, quote-unquote job. Either way, it's going to show the same, right? And then here's my total for so far for this customer, right? If I had other jobs, I'd have other columns. But I really wish we could hide this column there. So I passed that up to, as just feedback in general, but not something that we can do at this time. But if I scroll over a little bit and we focus on this, right, here's where it is. Right now I already have some cost of goods sold, okay? So my budgeted versus my actual for that. Here it is, total beyond the basics. I have my budgeted versus actual already, so I can see. And you can do over under too, right? I can do dollar amount remaining, percent remaining if I want. Just run the report. It'll add those columns as well. You scroll across. If you need more of the left-hand panel, a couple inches left for more real estate, just click on the little hamburger icon between accountant and the accountant toolbox. Right? So now I have that, and I have my remaining. Very similar to estimate to actual report within Pro. Okay? Now, again, you can customize and I'll get to that question. Thanks, Kristen. 1 second. How I built this report, like you would come in here and I filtered by customer, and I went in and I chose this particular customer, right? It was the Beyond the Basics. I did the total one, right? And that shows all of them. And I could have checked just probably this one as well, but that's how you'll see it. You'll see the customer colon and then the project or sub-customer. And then when you're done, do save your customizations. This is like memorizing your report. I mean, it's probably like old news to you all, but just wanted to make sure so that you don't have to recreate it, because this one can be, if you have a bunch of other things you forgot to recreate, it just takes a while to recreate. So you can add it to a group. You might just create a group called contractor clients or whatever, commercial versus residential or whatever you do. And then this is something that, like, if Kristen and I are in the same firm, she could share it with just me, or I could share it with the all-user company admin or the master admin at QBO, right? They would be able to see this type reporting. And I might be able to, no, I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's it. I was going to say maybe sales customers, but I think it's just going to be those that could see like P&L balance sheet type report. So the all-user company admin, master admin. But Kristen, she could just go ahead and do firm only, and that way I'd see it, and not even the master admin of the client file will be able to see it. I mean, that stuff is there as well. So I like that sharing with firm only if, I'm creating it just for us, and I don't want to confuse Woody, who's, our client and stuff, right? So with this report, this is really just for us, et cetera. So there's that too. Even though he's a master admin, he'd never see the report. Now, Kristen says, in desktop, I usually have my clients use the items tab to create an estimate, and then we run our budgets and versus actuals, but have been frustrated that I can't do this in QBO. Yeah, here's what we're talking about. I'm in this file anyways because I got some conversion training tomorrow that I was prepping for. This should have data. What Kristen's talking about is this jobs time and mileage reporting is really impactful. And I have my estimate to actual detail, right? I don't know if I have any data in here. Yeah, I guess I do. All right, but it's just, you can see this right away when you create the estimate. I mean, obviously the actual is going to come in as you enter data, posting transactions and tagging it, right? But this is built off, the actual estimate, and that's totally item-based, right? So here's the estimate. So she'd be setting up this with her client. And what I like about desktop is there's the markup column. So I can, if you're looking at this, is I have the cost of the business, and I got the revenue I'm anticipating. And that's what I should see on the budget versus, estimate versus actual report in desktop, and I do. And you see it like right away, right? You don't have to do the extra step of a budget. That's why I want to make sure we're aligning on this, because you might have a client that goes, oh, yes, they could be super rigid on this process, and they could create an estimate and go create a budget for their sub-customer or project, and I could get this type of view using the budget to actual report, though still not as pretty or grid-like, which I still like, but I can still get to that info in QBO Plus assuming they wanted to do this workaround that I'm telling you about. You don't have to do, I'm just saying. But you're going to have more of your clients, I think, I'm not going to put them through this rigidity. Let's just go with Notify, because the key thing is what? The question asked, look, would you rather be mobile, or do you need to be mobile? Is that the more pressing need versus why don't we just get you Premier Contractor, right? And honestly, I don't have the dog in the fight. We just committed to 10 more years of desktop, but QBO is growing like crazy. There's, what, 3 million users of desktop. There's 2.8 million of QBO, most in the U.S., right? Not all your clients are going to need this stuff. But for the ones that do, this is why we're doing this training, right, or this overview, if you will, right, so that you can decide between the two platforms. You're going to support both. But the third-party apps do help you move away from desktop if you want to, like if that's an agenda you have within the firm, because it's just so easy to collaborate and log in and do stuff, and most of your clients don't need all this anyway, right? So Notify, yeah, Kristen, definitely is a good one. That's really good for roofers, any kind of residential contractors. That's their specialty. For commercial contractors, that's going to be CoreCon, C-O-R-E-C-O-N. And, of course, the other thing, too, if you need the labor burden, right, and you're not doing that in QBO anyway. But this is what Kristen's talking about. Create the estimate. This is what I mean. I'm just doing that, and afterwards I do this budget so that I can get a budget to actual, right? Okay, let's go back to the estimate. Now, this is a new feature rolling out to your clients in, yes, it's going to be Essentials and Plus, Progress Invoicing. I had to check my knowledge there, my memory. You click Create Invoice. I know I haven't done all the cost yet, but anyway, let's just invoice some. And this is really similar to what you would see within desktop. A pop-up happens, right? Now, again, not all your clients are going to have this yet, so you might have a Plus client that's been waiting for this. You go into settings, because I was telling you and you saw it in mine. It's not there. Don't worry, it will be. We're rolling it out slowly, cluster by cluster, okay? So I just happen to be part of the beta, but I want you to see it because it is live and, you know, a lot of QBO subscriptions. So I'm just going to do 50%, because oftentimes with service-based business, you're either doing the total or you're doing like a certain percentage. I'll do 50% now and 50% later when we're totally done. But you can also do a custom amount for each line, okay? So, but that's also by amount and percent, not yet quantity. So, but again, most service-based, they're going to be doing probably percent. So I'm going to do percent. It's going to create the invoice, and I'll show you where the visibility is too. So let's flex there now. Don't worry about the drawer. The drawer opens up if I have stuff attached, as you know, to this project or customer that I haven't yet added to the invoice. It's probably billable charges or expense or time, right, that I could add, but I'm not passing it through, but the drawer is there to pass it through, right? Maybe for service-based business, it might be worth looking, right? You can filter by, you know, just expenses that I have or estimates to add. And I have these billable expenses that are waiting to go to the invoice. Why? Because I checked the billable box, right? Remember that setting? So it's a drawer that opens up. The drawer will also open up on cost forms, a bill, a check, whatever. I think if you're doing a check and you have an open bill too, just to remind you that, hey, there's a bill, you probably should do a bill payment, right? So there's that too. But the drawer also mostly I see on the revenue side, right? Anyway, I just close it by clicking the arrow, no big deal. But that's how you'd pass through time expense, right? Unless you did the totally automated way, which I'd only encourage if your client it can live that way. Doesn't need to choose what goes on an invoice. That should be rare. All right, so I have the invoice. Notice I have quantity here, right? 50% up, so it already figured this out for me. And then I have the rate and here. Now I'm going to click Save. This is a posting transaction. It's debiting AR and crediting revenue. Scroll down at the bottom. Here's where I have the estimate I can go back to because it's blue, right? The total amount, and then what this invoice did. Right? Now you can also see this. Let's quickly tangent to sales form customization, because your clients are going to be emailing an invoice to the customer that they have the estimate for. You want the customer to be able to see the progress, right? Now the progress yet has not, why it's still kind of in quote-unquote beta, it hasn't actually matched up to reporting yet, or even like the sales center. It'll still show the old amount of the estimate, right? But there is a due column, so let's go to Customize. Now, I have let's see here if I already did the standard. Well, we'll edit the current just to show you it doesn't really matter. So I'm getting to, well, I already saved it. I don't know why it's doing that. Anyway. All right. In order to see the progress on an emailed invoice, and you can feel free to email your account manager if you forget. Hey, Woody was talking about some kind of like, my client's going to start using progress invoicing because they have it, and they're going to email the invoice to their client, but they're not seeing the progress, the due column. How do we do that again? Right, because there's some stuff you do. You have to be the ARI template, right? We have 5 different templates, right? And you have to choose the ARI one. I don't know why, but you got to choose that. And then under Edit Print Settings, and this is where it gets a little dull, make sure the Fit Printed Form with Pay Stub in Window Envelopes unchecked. Again, I don't know why, but that matters. Under Content, you're going to click on here the target area, right? Source, target, footer. And you're going to go to Show More Activity Options. Show progress on line items, email only. In other words, you're emailing the invoice to the customer that, agreed to the estimate, and they want to see the progress. What's due, versus what's the original estimate amount. This all has to do under the umbrella of progress invoicing, okay? But don't worry, I think we're just going to have this on automatically, so you won't have to go through all these steps. But during the beta, I had to turn on like 4 things. It's fairly ridiculous. But anyway, I'm just psyched it's in here, okay, to be fair. Show progress on line items, email only. And then the ARI template that's it. And then it shows the due column when you preview the PDF. I wonder if this will show this one or just a sample one. I think it does. We'll go back to the invoice if that's the case. Yeah, this is just a sample one. Let me go back, done. And if we look at the invoice that I'm going to email, we'll do print preview. You should see, as it's coming up, they'll see a due column, right? So here's the progress, right? This is 50% of the 600, right? And it shows the progress with the estimate summary there. So when I email this, the ARI form template, and just, email me if you need to know the other 3 things. If your client happens to be doing it yet, right? And we haven't just coded it in as an automatic thing. But I'll be happy to give you the steps. It's pretty easy. Anyway, net on progress invoicing. Okay, so I'm going to click Save and Close, and now I just have, $575 left, or, I guess that makes sense. So that is the progress invoicing. Now, one other thing, let's go to the bank feed too, because they might job cost there. And Valerie, my colleague, is going to have a Beyond the Basics banking and reconciliation hour. That's probably going to be June or July timeframe, so I'll make sure, we send these registration links to your account manager who invited you here today, and they'll make sure you have it. It's a great deep dive. If I can take a quick tangent, we have this product video site as well. Hopefully you're seeing. I'm going to put it in the chat area. When you click into QBO and QBOA, there's already a lot of this stuff, like browser best practices, accountant best practices, going beyond the basics. When this was just like, I did service and product all in 1 hour. That got a little hectic. I'm already chaotic as it is, so I decided to split them up. But she has this great bank feed and Reconcile. If you just want some deep dive training on bank feeds, I suggest watching it. And then there's also a 22-minute one on bank feeds. But anyway, I'm not here to train you on bank feeds. I really just want to look at the job costing aspect of it. Where else can I tag the customer? Because they're going to be bringing in stuff from the credit card that they bought at Lowe's on the way to do the job, right? So I have this pretend this travels going to the job for whatever reason. I guess in my scenario it's pertinent. Maybe I drove over or something like that to do the bookkeeping or whatever. But here I can select the customer, so I could do, beyond the basics and look for, this particular project and make it billable or not, right? So I can do it within the transaction line of the bank feed too, okay? And when I add it, that's going to have it tagged and ready to go. Of course, class and location, right? Class, location. So I'll just go ahead and click add for this one. So that would go to that as well, that particular cost. Now, we like bank rules, and I know you do as well, because this helps corral the transaction into the correct payee and category, and you can do splits and all that stuff. However, and let's just edit this Hilton one. There is no, though there's class and location, there's no job one at the rule level yet. So really pushing for this one, because the more rules you do, I think the more accurate the feed will be. And, you want to be able to tag a job here, particularly your service-based clients, but not yet. So if they need to tag the project or the sub-customer or just the customer, keep in mind, you don't have to use project or sub-customer. You guys could just use customer too. I just think that I just try to always think of things in terms of desktop. So how do I mimic that, right? Customer : job. That's why I'm talking this way. But you don't have to change. If you're happy, your client's happy with just creating customers and using that to tag things too for profitability, awesome. Do that. Okay. Not even when you do the split across class, travel, of course I can do it for class and percent and amount and category. I still don't have a job field yet at the rule level, right? So you got to be in the transaction line itself. And it's just for your clients that are taking the Amex or the Visa, or they're using the debit card attached to the checking account, the transaction is going to be in the feed too. Though you can't set up a rule to include the customer and make it billable, you can just drill into the line itself, and you'll see it there. But soon that will come, right? Soon that will come. This has nothing to do with today, but we added this little checkbox recently. Remember category selection? Well, maybe you don't want to remember it, or you don't want QBO to auto-do it. Uncheck the box. Love that. Already have some friends telling me they're thrilled about that, because the auto entry thing or the auto tagging is, on some clients, is not helping them. Anyway, yes, Kristen, let's see. Will they hopefully add a class location column to the main bank screen? So here is my class column. Here is my location column. Do you mean something else than the transaction line window? What do you mean by main bank fields feed screen? Yeah, do you see? Oh, sorry. My bad. You mean here. Yeah, that would be awesome. I would send feedback on that one. I've not heard that yet, but yeah, that would be great. Right there. If you just had a couple columns for class location. I don't know if that's on the roadmap. I know we've made some enhancements to bank feed, but I don't know if that's one of them. Okay. Last thing, we might as well go. Right, totally. Yeah, no, that's good feedback. Basically saying it'd be nice to be able to add, well, heck, any column really, but certainly class location. So from the feed, she knows if it's tagged or not, right? And again, the answer would be, at least until we put it in, set up a rule, because that certainly you can automate that. Remember with the rule too, if I go back there real quick, just in case, you have this automatically add to my books. At the very bottom, that checkbox, which is not default, right? Because that's important. We don't want just a bunch of stuff going in until you kind of okay it. But when you check that off, that your client wouldn't even be able to review it or add it in by mistake or something. Once the rule's applied, we add it to the register for you. So that also is a way that can fail-safe stuff. Consider that as well. You'll know when to use it or not. But I wanted to make sure, you probably already knew that. I just want to make sure we're all aligned there. That's all. Okay. So job costing at the bank feed level, hope it's at the rule level, and we'll make that note. 1 second here, add class low to bank feed columns. Cool. Thank you. All right. Then I'll pass that up. Okay, workers. Close some other tabs. I don't really need them right now. So we did change this to workers. You got employees. I know you can't really track labor burden yet unless you do a $0 journal entry, but you will have subcontractors. So you have a contractor tab now, and you can add a contractor. It's as simple as just clicking add contractor. I already did it with a property owner, and you can actually send an invite for them to add their information for you, right? And I mean this type of info. Like I have Adams Clay here, has been a subsea for a long time, right? All this stuff. I just sent him an email and he filled it all in. It actually kind of opens up like a modified self-employed, if you will, that they don't actually have to pay for or anything. Just enter this information. So there's a little integration behind the scenes of self-employed right from this window. Or you can just type it in yourself. You don't have to send them an email. But the nice thing, if I go back to, I wanted to show you just real quick, I go to property owner, it says send invite, right? Property owner, you put in their email. And I think this is B2B prop owner at gmail.com. And this is going to send prop owner an invite to fill out the 1099 tax for me. Kind of cool. You send the invite, and it's waiting for contractor. I happen to have in another Chrome, you know, hopefully I created the email this morning, kind of hoping that I send it to the right one. But net, it sends an email, and we'll come back here later. I mean, we'll give it some time. Usually it's within a few minutes, but they open it in like a self-employed that they don't actually have to sign up for, right? So don't worry about that. We're not like pushing them into self-employed or not, but they might. I mean, it would make sense maybe, but they don't have to do it. It doesn't charge them anything. It just opens up a field to enter their tax ID, you know, or whatever other information, address, phone number, things you would need to go through the 1099 wizard and then e-file it, you know, in January, you know. So we'll come back here. I don't see it yet, but there it is. See? Needs a few details. So I know this is the person I'm working for. You click on that, add your details now, and literally it opens up like a self-employed thing in another tab. So ask me to sign up, but I don't need to create an account. I just like, it's going to have that. I put in the phone and I put in a password, right? So I'll just do 1, 2, 3. Let me do my better one. If you guys haven't seen this, hopefully, this is what you would do with your subcontractors. Create free account. See? Free account. Okay. Did I not do? I'll give this one more try and then we'll move on. But my keyboard. Okay. It creates a free account. It's basically self-employed, but not all of it. You'll see what it looks like. And then me as a subcontractor can just enter in the information that I need in, you know, here. And then it just flows in, right? So that's what I'm really trying to do. And that's fairly new. Just wanted to show you guys that it's available. So, you know, welcome, first things first. How do you file your taxes? I'm going to do an individual. Next. And then, boom, this info comes in later. Okay, and I'll skip the other things, but, you know, you can imagine the subcontractor would fill it out, and then all of a sudden it would update here, right? And then I have the information here, and that's how all these guys get updated. I just sent them an invite. Pretty cool, but that's contractors within the workers tab, right, renamed from employees. Fair enough? Can you create an invoice which includes more than one project? No, not at this time. And there's no, we'll go over this next week, there's no sales orders in QBO yet either. Sales receipts, yes, not sales orders. Okay, recurring sales receipt QB payments. I did want to mention, we kind of looked at sales form customization. That's good, I could take that off. Class and location tracking, I showed you where to turn it on. I don't really use it for the service-based business or job costing because I feel like you get more detail with a sub-customer project or a customer even than a class location. I use those for higher level, right? But before we go to the recurring sales receipt and payments, I did want to mention something. I created a bill earlier. Let's talk about class and location. Did I create that earlier? No, I thought I did. Let me see. Why would it not be there? There it is. Got it. I knew I wasn't crazy. Well, anyway, class location, what's the main difference? I want you to know, because you might use it for other things, and it's important to know. Yes, it is true there's no viable balance sheet by class in QBO Plus. I mean, the one in desktop isn't any better, but at least you have a canned report, right? You still got to do a lot of work to make it accurate. But if you're using class tracking, and just really quick on that, then we'll go through a few slides and we'll end it. Location tracking, I showed you where you turn it on, and you can have different labels for location. You can call them something else, you know, division, department, territory, property, things like that. Location, you can have one per transaction, okay? Balance sheet by location, profit and loss by location. But granted, I'm using sub-customer projects for job-type stuff. Class and location, I want to use for maybe higher level, you know, 30,000-foot view to be able to go into a P&L by division, department, whatever. So you have two options, class, location. The main difference is location is supported with the balance sheet. because it's in the top area of the form. Remember, AP is getting credited up top, the summary or source area. This is target area. This is basically P&L stuff. Not all the time, but mostly. So location, you can have one per transaction, one per event. Class, you can do a setting to one per, or usually I see it where you do line by line. So now we're going to, I know we're talking service-based business, but you'll have some nonprofit clients, and you'll want to ask them, you know, because they're going to want to, if they can do profit and loss by class all day long, right? I tag Department 1, Department 2, right? They can do that all day long. But a balance sheet, because class is target only, it won't pick up the AP amount on a balance sheet. It's important to know. If I go to the More tab, I always love showing the transaction journal. That is your Control Y report in desktop, right? If you just want to know what's being debited, credited behind the scenes. So go to the transaction journal under the More tab, and I'm going to add, click the little baby gear, detail reports, a lot of stuff you can add. I'm going to add class. I'm going to add location. I'm going to get rid of memo description. That's fine. Step off. This is a great visual of what I'm talking about, right? Notice, location is hitting all three lines of the transaction. The top is source, crediting AP, that's summary, source data. Bottom two, target, right? Notice, the classes do not hit the source line. That's why when I go run a balance sheet and filter by class, AP, AR, that kind of stuff, checking accounts, they're not going to show, okay? But on a P&L, yeah, it'll be great. P&L by class, profit and loss by location, and the workaround is balance sheet by location if you need that. It's just important to align on for your nonprofit conversations, because they might be fine with location tracking, but I know a lot of nonprofits, they want to split it out per line on the bill, not just the whole amount going, right? So I wanted to show that as a little extra bit for today. And then while I answer this next question, I am going to bring up the PowerPoint again and go through what I think is another important part of automation for your service-based businesses, QuickBooks Payments with recurring transactions. All right, let's see here. Can you create an invoice which includes more than one project? Nope, I said that. If you get time, can you, oh, wait a minute. I think I'm wrong there. Sorry about that. Yes, if they're to the same customer, because there's the drawer, right? So I would see all the estimates available to put on the invoice. So of course you can. I apologize. I hope you didn't leave yet. That was my bad. I don't know what I was thinking about. Wasn't thinking. So yes, answer. You can create an invoice against multiple estimates. Okay. Or you said project, but yeah, I mean, yes, because they're going to see all the estimates there and just create an invoice there. All right. Can you please show the best way to enter a customer deposit on a job that hasn't started yet? Yes, let's do that, and then we'll look at the slides. And then address customer deposits when they post to the bank. Customer deposits, I guess we look there. I think I have one. But, yeah, you could either do this two different ways. If it's an upfront deposit, you can either do bank deposit. Now, what I usually do, and we'll go over a little bit because there's a lot involved here, Lisa, but that's fine. If anybody needs to leave, that's cool. I have the recurring sales receipts to get the auto ACH in the deck. You could look at those slides. Basically, it's just, let's just do that quick, and then I'll come back to this. Why I wanted to show this is like bank feed is automation, so is this, right? So you're going to do a sales receipt or go to the recurring transaction list and create one, make it recurring, because when you choose either credit card or ACH, you can put in the information. These transactions get automatically emailed out of QuickBooks Online. And then if you have the ACH, let me put in the, yeah, here it is, account and routing. And this is PCI compliant because I have signed authorization. You check the box. You read it over on the phone, right? First time. This is what your customers should be doing, your clients or their customers. Though the funding period is 5 days, right? For the ACH, it's free. QB Payments is free. And I can set up a sales receipt for that bookkeeping, telephone support, and accounting consulting for like all 30 of my clients and set up 30 recurring sales receipts with all the debit information, and I can be paid automatically, right? I mean, you all, when you move to the Your Books file to QBO, this is what you should be doing to automate getting paid from your clients so that your clients can do the same thing with theirs, right? As long as they can wait 5 days to fund. It's just how it is now. I hope we change it. Credit cards 2 to 3 days, but ACH payment from customers is 5. But it's important. I mean, this is, I think, a great thing for it, just to automate that, right? So I just wanted to make sure we're aligned there too, and maybe that's either here nor there, but it is in the deck, which you can download in the handout section to go to webinar. Now let's talk about upfront deposits. Okay, so now I can back up a bit. If you have to leave, that's really all I had to show today, so feel free to split, but I'm going to go through some upfront deposit stuff, right? And there is a, and thanks, Lisa, there is a video too on our product video set called Handling Upfront Deposits. 2 different ways, with an item or something like that. Yeah, Kristen, I will email the deck to you, right? Just ping me. I'm putting my email in the chat, and I'll just reply to your email, right? Okay, just like the account manager is just different first and last name. So you can either do the deposit on a deposit and hit the appropriate liability account, and that's really a debate between us. Are you going to use AR, or are you going to use other current liability? So I'm of the mind, you might be too, but again, I always default to you guys because this is your profession, and I'm just kind of showing stuff, but I don't have clients. I'm not an accountant, right? But if it's AR and it goes over a month period, or you're going over periods, then it really should be another current liability. So you created another current liability called Upfront Deposit, and I have that in my chart of accounts, right? Sorry, here we go. Go to Accounting, Chart of Accounts, and I should have Upfront Deposit. No, how about Customer Deposit? Yeah, see, Customer Deposit, it's a other current liability. So retainer, if you will. And then I created an item of the same, products and services list, and I created a, let's see here, is this upfront? Yeah, created this service item called Upfront Deposit. Let's edit it. It's just a single-sided item. I don't see a reason for purchase side on this. And it's hitting the 2200 account that I just showed you, right? Now that's important because you might, to give them a receipt, you might do a sales receipt, right, to this particular customer. Let's just do this one. And you're going to choose, you know, the upfront deposit because I can't do an account on here. I need the item linked to the account, right? So I'm going to do upfront deposit. Here it is, and say they gave us, you know, 15, let's see, what was it, 1150? Say they did 575 towards the job. I might as well keep it consistent with my project. So I have the, oh, okay. I have the upfront deposit, right? And this is going to the other current liability, and it's also going to either undeposited funds or the checking account, right? So we'll click Save. And when you're not used to stuff and it's the first time you're using a workaround, use the transaction journal. Just make sure you're seeing the correct grid happening from an accounting standpoint. Okay, good. Debited at UF for the asset account, whatever. Credited the liability, okay? And then you do all the work you do. Now, the other way you could do it, of course, too, is you could do just a deposit, right? You don't have to do the item. I need the item because how are you gonna bleed it out of the account on the final invoice? That's why I do the item. So you could do an account here. I could just come down here, receive from, right, beyond, and choose the other current thing. Sorry. After about an hour, I just start saying words. They may not be correct, so just bear with me. But anyways, you can put in the amount this way too, right? So this is a deposit as well. It's going to debit and credit stuff, right, that we want, okay? So I like the item base, but it's up to you. People do the deposit as well. Now, and then you can run a report on the other current liability report. You can do the quick report from the chart of accounts. Let's skip to the last invoice, right? Let's go to, just do an invoice. That's fine. I could go on from the project or whatever. You're going to do beyond the basics. This one, drawer will open up, and I have the last one there. Now, see, this is the stuff on the progress invoicing why it's still in beta. I want to see what's really left, not the original amount. You know what I mean? That could be problematic for your clients. It might be confusing. But anyway, you add all the items to it, and then at the last line on the invoice, you're going to do that upfront deposit item as a negative, which is going to do what? It's going to debit the liability account to bring it to zero. That's why I like the item. Yeah, cool. You got it, Lisa. All right. Yeah, or AR. Do a credit memo. That's great too. again, if it's within a closed period and not a big deal to you, yeah. I think the other current liability can get confusing. I'll just do a credit memo, honestly, and just apply it, or a negative AR or something like that on a deposit form. That's all acceptable. And again, I default to your guys' experience. This is just best practices I got from you all over the years, okay? So you take it with a grain of salt. But that's it for today. I do appreciate your time. I'm going to stop the recording. I think I've talked, way enough.